I was pregnant at the time, but I was basically going to Dallas almost every month to try to look for deals. After I had my baby, maybe about 6 weeks after, my husband went to go see a property, and that was the deal that we have now. I think everyone was telling me to slow down. I just couldn't afford that. I was having kids, and I really had to sit down with them, and I was like, can I have it all?
So the short answer is yes, ladies, you can have it all. Yes.
Yes, it's tough. You do have to compromise on a lot of things, but I certainly think if you have the will to do it, it is definitely possible.
Welcome to our very first episode of the Invest in Rome show. And I'm super excited to have on our very first show, Anita Wong. Anita Wong is a multifamily real estate investor, entrepreneur, and advocate for empowering women in AAPI community. She's the founder of Give Rise Capital, a real estate investment firm focused on multifamily properties, and the founder of SARE Ladies, or Subtle Asian Real Estate, which connects over 24,000 Asian investors globally. Anita, hi. Anita, you had a busy last year. You closed on your first multifamily property and at the same time had your first baby.
Yes.
So
Sometimes my husband says we had multiple babies, we had two babies at the same time, because it certainly feels like that. It feels like we were just it was just a lot of new learning on every end.
Oh, I bet. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, so many big things. How's the baby doing?
Doing good. She is almost a year now, and we've also closed on our property for about 4 months now. So we have waged on both ends the hardest part of both journeys. And so I feel like they're kind of growing up together. It's kind of funny.
So, I mean, let's get into it. So I know that our listeners want to hear, how does somebody get into buying your first multifamily? And what was that journey like for you? Where did you start? And most importantly, also, how did you know it was a good deal?
So I've been investing for about 15 years now. A lot of that was single family, small multifamily. And basically, after some point, after running a lot of STRs, MTRs for a while, I was kind of tired of doing things one by one. And so I learned about multifamily maybe about 3 years ago. And it's really kind of started from beginning to end my first acquisition about that time. So I started with just getting to know people in the multifamily space. And, I think that's also how we crossed paths at some point as well. And I joined Link Multifamily, the Linfinity group. And that's where I started really learning about multifamily. And then I partnered with Tony Lin. And now he is my co-lead GP on that deal. It was a great time actually to enter into the market. It was kind of funny because when I entered, everyone in the market was like, basically all these deals are going to fall from the sky because there's going to be so many loans that are going to expire. There's so many bridge loans that are out there. And then lo and behold, that really didn't happen. It wasn't like every deal was kind of falling like that. We did end up cashing more or less a distressed seller, a seller that didn't have a great loan on his deal. So we were able to secure a really great price point for that. And we were really at the bottom trough of the interest rate bucket. So we got a pretty good interest rate as well.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I know it's been really a tough year for multifamily and being able to find a deal. So congrats to you
Yeah,
on snagging the deal.
Yeah, I think commercial, I'm learning, is such a different journey. I think it took a long time to get here because you really have to be in the know with the right people in order to get a good deal, right? And so I'm super grateful for the SARE community as well as Tony Lin, who really took me under his wing. And without his mentorship, I don't think that we would be able to get the deal, much less be a lead GP on the deal. I think most people, they would start by doing passive investing, being with other multifamily, and then kind of step into GP. But I think it's because I've had several years of working with SARE and the SARE Ladies community that accelerated me to the very front.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, they say real estate is all about relationships and the connections that you build.
Mhm,
And that's how ultimately you get a good deal.
mhm.
So, can you talk a little bit more about how you found your mentor, how he helped you along the way,
Yeah,
underwriting
so
process?
yeah. So Tony Lin is my mentor. I founded Linfinity. And I actually met Tony through SARE. And at this time, I was already looking into the multifamily space. I was looking for mentorship groups. I was going through the traditional steps. And then he ended up sponsoring one of my events. I was doing a SARE Ladies investor trip where I was taking women out to Dallas to invest, right? So we were doing tours and things like that. And I told them that I was interested and that I was ready to jump into, Brad Sumrock's group basically. And that he just goes, no, 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 don't go there. Just come learn with me first. You don't have to pay anything. And then just come and learn with me. And so for about 3 months, I think, I, sat down with him and he taught me about what cap rates are, what a whisper price is, like, a lot of the traditions. And we did a lot of underwriting in those classes. And that was pretty much how I started. I had my baby, I was pregnant at the time, but I was basically going to Dallas almost every month to try to look for
Oh.
deals. Kind of everything wasn't really right in the right place. And then basically after I had my baby, maybe about 6 weeks after, my husband went to go see a property. And that was the deal that we have now.
That's amazing. Especially that you were going every month with
I was
pregnant.
very pregnant. And
That's
yeah.
amazing.
I think I was really like dealing with, I'm so grateful for the people that are in SARE Ladies because I was really dealing with a lot of stuff when I was pregnant for the first time. I think everyone was telling me to slow down when I just couldn't afford that in the multifamily space. Like people were just seeing me for the first time. I was getting in on it and then I was pregnant. I felt for a very long time that I really had to slow down or I would have considered myself a bad mom. That's how it kind of felt like. But
Mom guilt.
yeah, mom guilt,
Mom guilt.
right?
It's a thing.
And then like it's like you're traveling and then people are like, are you sure? Like like don't go by yourself. There's a lot of stuff, right? I really had to seek out women that were doing multifamily, that were doing commercial, or really working on a high caliber, that were just like me, that was having kids. And I really had to sit down with them and I was like, you know, can I have it all? And that was one thing that I really am grateful for from the Sarah Lee's community. And all of them really encouraged me to step forward into it and just be like, don't. I think it was really also really easy for my husband to step in on it and kind of take credit for the work that I've done. So I'm incredibly grateful for the people that pushed me to continue to go and that they're crediting me for this acquisition, not my husband, so.
So the short answer is yes, ladies, you can have it all. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, like, keep your doctors closed, try not to go 36-week pregnant, but I mean, I definitely did that, but you can do it all. I think that it's tough, is you do have to compromise on a lot of things, but I certainly think if you have the will to do it, it is definitely possible.
Can you take us back a little bit and tell us a little bit about more about SARE Ladies?
Sure.
And you are the founder of SARE Ladies. How
Mhm.
how did it all start, and why did you start it, and the story behind that?
Well, how it all started was a podcast just like this. Well, to be all
Oh.
serious, yeah, exactly. So, I'm going to be waiting in a few years for your Invest in Rome community right after this. So, Sarah Ladies was really like born at a time where I was really contemplating about my own culture and identity, right? This was after the last Trump election. This was sort of when also a lot of AAPI hate crimes were happening around my city. And I lived in San Francisco and there was kind of a point where I was buying weapons for my parents who were elderly, and people that looked like them were being attacked on buses in my own hometown. And I really had a reckoning of like what are we doing? Who am I in American culture? And I really felt like I needed to lean into my own community and affect people that look like me. And I just kind of came to this conclusion. I just needed to understand who that was. And also, I was just looking in my industry, real estate, and every single person, and you know, dear, it's just like you look out and there's just like a sea of white men in blue suits. That is the reality of it. Even to this day, I just came back from another conference, which was literally what it was. I think as much as we think sometimes that women have made waves, I do think so, but I think there's a lot more work to do. And our mission as SARE Ladies is to encourage people to whatever they look like to lean into real estate and if that's what they want, and even maybe for the purpose of like financial freedom, but I see it as much more right for women. I It's not just a case of real estate leads to financial freedom, it leads to agency, right? It leads to being able to set yourself free from a shitty job, set yourself free from a shitty relationship. It's about you being able to take care of your parents who left a very war-torn country in order to come here. These are the things that you're able to do once you can build that financial background and literacy and portfolio in order to do right. So that's what our mission has been at SARE Ladies, and it's part of, again, Central Asian Real Estate, which is a 24,000 API national network. Since our founding, we started with this simple podcast. I had a dream of doing women's summits, which we did. I think we did 3 of them. Then we did investor field trips where we took women out to different places and toured neighborhoods and did deals together. We're constantly doing accountability things, networking programs. That's really all the things that we built on maybe just a simple podcast.
Wow, that's admirable for sure. Like SARE itself, 24,000 people. That's all across the United States.
Yeah,
It's really making an impact.
yeah, I feel like if I think I generally do know all of the Asian people in real estate at that point. I think it might be actually 24,000 people. Yeah. So it was quite a big group, but it's a great group.
You mentioned your parents, and I think one of the first meetings when I first met you, I noticed you had a tattoo. And I
Hmm.
asked you, what did that tattoo mean? And you mentioned filial piety. Did I say that right?
Yeah,
Filial
yeah, yeah.
piety.
Filial piety. Yep.
And honestly, I had to Google what that meant afterwards. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh,
How
yeah,
what
sure. I
that
didn't think I'd be
means?
talking about my tattoo on here, but let's go with it. Yeah, filial piety is just like is an Asian cultural thing where you're expected to take care of your parents, but they also take care of you, right? So that's something that has meant a lot to me is being able to honor them, being able to take care of them. And that's also a big reason why I do real estate is to honor their legacy, to honor their work, the way that they sacrificed for me coming from China, coming to here, and all the things that they have built. And so that's what that meant to me.
So how do you think the Asian culture, maybe your parents, has affected your real estate and the decisions that you've made so far in your career?
Yeah. So, in regards to my own portfolio, I would say the reason why I continue to grow one and have spent so much effort doing so is because I want to honor the work that my parents have and the legacy they have built here, right? And I think that it also has a big impact on a lot of our community, and something that perhaps most people don't understand. I would say like I also am trying to build my portfolio in a way so that I could be around my family, that I can get to know them in my lifetime. I feel like it would be a shame for me to not to get to know who my parents are before they pass away. So it impacts in a way because I want to be near them. I want to be close to them. And I live in California. And to live close to, and I live in the Silicon Valley. And so for me to live in a place where I could be close to them, I also have to afford another $2 million house. And that
Yeah.
has a direct financial impact. And so I think that I think I talk about this in SARE Ladies a lot about how these small, minute cultural things do have a big impact on the way that we make decisions as investors.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? When I think of Asian culture, we always talk about things like scarcity mindset and how we're thinking about deals, how that has shaped our mindset when we look at.
Yeah, yeah. Scarcity mindset definitely comes up quite a lot. And I even think about like the inability for Asian people to talk about themselves and highlight themselves. And I think that directly impacts like the way that we show off, right? We talk about our portfolio, which is like here in America, it's like everyone wants to hop on stage and talk about how great they are, how much money they have. That is not a thing, not as much of a thing in Asian culture. You want to be humble. That's how you show off, right? In Asian culture. Or scarcity mindset or perfectionism is definitely a big thing too. I'm thinking about the A plus Asian mentality about needing to be perfect or nothing. And that was even a big barrier for me getting into real estate because, well, first of all, you're looking at social media and you're like you're looking at all these people that are just getting amazing deals. But the reality is like that's not it, right? So you're kind of doing underwriting, thinking that you're going to get an A plus deal. And then if it's not A plus, then it's nothing. So people don't invest, women don't invest. And I always really encourage people to go for the good enough deals, right? Is it good enough that you would, it may not be a total slam dunk. If it is, if it kind of falls under a bar, then maybe, yeah, you should invest. It's really about what do they say? Market values participation. So if you don't invest now or you really you punt it down the line, you're losing out on more than you think you are.
Yeah, that's just some really good advice. I mean, I know I can get in that mindset where I'm always like, well, it doesn't check off all the boxes. This property doesn't check off all the boxes. I don't know if I could do this deal. But in reality, it's always like solving the problems, right? You add value by figuring out how you can solve the problems of that property. And it's not always going to be perfect.
Hmm.
So,
Almost
uh,
almost never perfect.
never, never,
Anything. I
exactly. Yeah.
I would say if you haven't fucked it up, you haven't learned anything about real estate. you know, and I think that's also another thing I've noticed after several years of really being in SARE Ladies is like just how scared people are of screwing up, right? And I think that's what men get right perhaps better than women do is that I think men have just more they're just more trained for the mentality of getting the reps in. It doesn't matter if it screws up or it's a bad episode or it's a bad deal. You just have to keep going. You kind of look at the entire range of it, not just that one single deal.
Okay. Well, if you had one piece of advice for somebody trying to get into multifamily, what would that be?
Trying to get multifamily specifically. I would say one thing that I think is really important is to build skin in the game and build it from a place of authenticity. Like I said earlier, I think that I was able to skip the line in regards to getting my first deal, but also being a lead GP on it, right? And that's pretty unheard of just because there's the reality of multifamily is that there's so few people that are distributing deals, right? Period. I think I was talking to someone the other day and they were saying, so how many brokers are really working the entire DFW space? And I think it's actually 10. He's like it's 10 people. So if you really think about it, there's only 10 people, all white men suits, by the way, giving deals out to basically everyone, you know? So you really have to be in the know, right? Be showing that you're above the rest. And the way to do that is to show again skin in the game, right? It's showing that you have a following that you've already built, more likely to give me a deal because they see that I already have a following and that I already have investors or people that are understanding, real estate behind me. It's much easier to invest in that kind of person than someone that's just maybe in the W-2 job. It's not that that's bad, but they're only dipping into their family and friends funds. So I would say if you want to get started in multifamily, start by building your audience, building your tribe and the getting about who you're going to be getting, like where your investors are going to be coming from. Because I think that's going to be really important when these 10 people are giving you a deal.
Start a podcast.
For a podcast. These are things that you don't need to wait for anyone to do, right?
Right.
You can start social media, you can start a podcast, whatever it is. Actually, I would say do it from my second advice is like do something you doesn't make you cringe. That's I think my first days I was trying to write a book I was like, that it was like literally pulling teeth for me.
Oh,
So I think always do it from a place where you find it effortless because it's if you prefer talking to people, then do a podcast. If you prefer writing, then do that or write a blog because if you're doing something that's not authentic to you, it's not easy to you, it's going to be much harder.
that, that's a good piece of advice. I need to follow that. All right. Well, I did want to touch on one thing, and that was traveling, because you are an adventurous traveler. And from what you've told me, your most recent trip sounded pretty epic. Can you talk about that? You biked Taiwan, is that right?
Yeah, I biked the entire country of Taiwan while I was 9 months postpartum. I mean, it was not the most sane thing to do. And a lot of people, again, told me that I was maybe being a little bit too intense. But
Did you have to
yeah,
train for that?
how? I had a baby in tow. I literally could only muster up. I bought a Peloton. They're like, you should get outside and actually ride the bike, get riding outside. I only did that once. It takes an entire day, guys. I don't know how anyone would be able, like with a newborn and you're breastfeeding, like it's just so hard to do that. And so I only did it once. I think that whole trip, though, I think the reason why I do these kind of crazy trips, and last year I hiked Kilimanjaro, or the year before I hiked Kilimanjaro and I was pregnant. These like hard feats, I lined up these travels in order to prove to myself that I can brace for pain. So my 500-mile bike ride, I was like, I'm gonna do it because I feel like I want to prove to myself that now that I'm a new mom, that my bucket list things don't stop here. So I was like, if I can do something I'm pretty much unprepared and still charge into it anyway, honestly, I think I can do anything. It was not only just a 500-mile bike ride that I completed, but we did it in the middle of a typhoon. I
What?
don't think I
What?
told you that. I was just
No.
like deeply regretting. I was like, I don't even. Yeah, there was Typhoon Unagi, which is coming from the south of Taiwan, which is where we were starting, and there was typhoon advisory like the first day, and we were just arriving there, just it was torrential rainfall. And then my tour company, luckily we skipped the town where there was the typhoon advisory, but basically for days on end, I think 6 days on end is a 9-day total bike ride back to back, right? 6 days total is just all rainfall. And it
Oh,
was like,
no.
yeah, I don't think I have. Yeah, it was not that fun. I was like, "Did you enjoy?" My friends were like, "Did you enjoy the scenery? How was it?" I was like, "I looked at the road, and that was it for 6 days. Just try not to eat shit the whole time."
That's like a war story.
Yeah, but I feel like every year I need to test myself with these kinds of trips because I think I'd always need to remind myself too that I can endure I can endure more than I think. So I feel like that's if I can endure this, then I can endure the next 200 units or the next 500 units or whatever the next audacious goal is.
Man, I feel like you fit the profile of a lot of successful people that I've ever met. And they do these crazy travel adventures, super adventurous, risk takers, but always working on the challenge, setting a goal for themselves and then defeating that challenge. I mean, Mount Kilimanjaro, that and biking Taiwan, that's no easy feat for anybody. So it's super impressive.
Yeah, I thank you. Yeah, I think it's always I think I'll probably kill myself on one of these things soon, but until I do, we'll see.
Okay, so before we go with our last few minutes, so I want to ask you what's next for you. I want to know what legacy do you want to leave behind? What hope do you have for your daughter? What's the next adventure? And then tell us about what's next this year. What's coming up this year for you? You have a few things up your sleeve.
Sure. Yeah, I'll touch base on the legacy part. Yeah, everything I do, I mean, for sure, everything has changed since I became a mom, and everything I do at this point, I want to be able to say that I did it in a way that I could stand proud and tell my daughter about it. So even the stuff that I'm doing with SARE Ladies, the community that I'm building around it, and the reason why I'm doing real estate in order to afford more time to spend with her, to stay at home And it is really there to be an example for her. And so when she looks back on maybe this time in my life when she gets to know me, then she can understand it and build it into her own life. So that's the reason why I do anything and everything. And the next big thing. So I would say, as part of the podcast, we've done 3 seasons now. I'm really excited to say that we're coming out with a mini series just on the acquisition of our 76 unit in Irving. So that I think it's a great way. I think most people don't really get to understand the deal from start to finish. So we created a 6 episode series on the different parts of how to actually get a deal done from start to finish, and also talking a little bit about what we have to look forward to in 2025. So that's going to be coming out on the SARE Ladies podcast. And then also looking to throw our first conference, which is another hairy, audacious goal
Wow.
that I'm trying. So I think we're aiming for September of 2025. It'll be in Vegas, and this is the first time where we've done a event this large, and it'll be a 1-day conference and just here to network and just to see women do deals together or people do deals together. So yeah, bring your family and friends and I'll send you the details when I have
Possibly, and
them.
I'm there. I'm there
Yeah.
for sure.
Yay. Yay.
Awesome. I'm super excited. I can't wait to hear about Emerald Point. Love to hear about a good deal and that success and how people got there. We'll share a link to that in our show notes.
Yeah.
And how do people get in contact with you? If anybody has any
Yeah.
questions or just want to reach out.
If you want to come join the SARE community, we're on Facebook, so Subtle Asian Real Estate. And then SARE Ladies has a website called sareladies.com, SARELADIES. You can also find me at Give Rise Capital, Anita at GiveRiseCapital.com.
Thank you, Anita. This was awesome.
Yay! First one done.